our last couple of videos, we've been looking at the Port Huron racetrack, or also known as the driving park back then. And I told you there were three major events, at least three that I know of, that I wanted to share with you, and I shared the first one in our last video, which was little Jimmy Ward, the first aviator to fly over Port Huron. Since that time, I found another photo of Jimmy Ward that I thought you might enjoy looking at. Occasionally, Jimmy took his wife up on a flight, and in this photograph here, you can see him and his wife getting ready to prepare for a flight. The second event I want to share with you involves these two fellows here. On the left is Barney Oldfield. On the right is Lincoln Beachey. Barney Oldfield was an American pioneer automobile racer. His name was synonymous with speed in the first 2 decades of the 20th century. The Oldfield name still holds the dim thunder of the huge, primitive racing cars that slammed through the dust at the murderous dirt track meets of the turn of the century. He drove throughout the country in cars with wonderful names like the Green Dragon, the Golden Submarine, the Killer Christie, and the Blitzen Benz. Barney Oldfield was born on an Ohio farm in 1878. Like many of the boys who were growing up in the 1890s, he became infected with the cycling craze and began his racing career on a borrowed Royal Flush bicycle in an 1894 cross-country contest. He came in second. 2 years later, he was barnstorming through the Midwest with his race-cycle racing team, billing himself as a bicycle champion of Ohio. Oldfield was shifting his allegiance to motorcycles by 1902, not quite what they look like today, when he received a letter from an old cyclist friend named Tom Cooper. Cooper had recently abandoned the sport to help a mechanic by the name of Henry Ford, who was trying to grub up enough money to start a motor company, build a pair of racing cars. The cars were taking shape, and Cooper wanted Barney to come to Detroit and lend a hand. Cooper was supposed to be Ford's driver, but in fact no one was anxious to handle the cars. They were nothing but engine and frame, steered by handlebars with exposed crankshafts that sprayed oil all over the driver. Oldfield was enchanted by them. He begged for the chance to try one, was given the 999, named after the New York Central's famous locomotive, and took it around the mile-long Grosse Pointe track in slightly over a minute. He was immediately chosen to drive in an upcoming race against the champion Alexander Winton in his favorite car, the Bullet. And sure enough, to the astonishment of everyone but Oldfield, the Ohio cyclist boomed past Winton's machine to win the 5-mile race. The ensuing publicity got Ford the financial backing to start his company. It also launched Oldfield's career. In the years that followed, Oldfield became a national figure. He was so well known that when police officers gave tickets to speeders, their favorite phrase was, "Who do you think you are, Barney Oldfield?" And I myself even heard that phrase running through the house. And my dad would say, "Who do you think you are, Barney Oldfield? Slow down." Even if you didn't follow racing, you knew who he was if you had to buy tires because there were Oldfield's tires. Here's an advertisement from the Port Huron paper. "Barney Oldfield tires will win for you." And the local Barney Oldfield dealer was Port Huron Tire and Repair Company at 614 Huron Avenue. If you didn't follow racing and you didn't buy tires, but you went to the movies, you'd know who Barney Oldfield was as well, because he was in several movies as a celebrity guest. Here's a clip from one I thought you might enjoy. We'll start this segment of the movie with the damsel in distress chained to the tracks. And here we have Barney and a friend going to rescue her. Many of the photographs you see of Barney Oldfield has a cigar in his mouth. You could tell by how the cigar was reacting in his mouth to the vibration of the race car, and he could judge from that. I'm not sure what he was judging, maybe the speed. And here we have the villain, throwing bombs out of the train, trying to get Barney Oldfield to stop the car. Hallelujah, help has arrived. Yeah, get that saw working. You got a long ways to go with that chain. And here comes the 5 policemen on a cart. And here comes the train. Move a little faster, Barney. Whew, right in the nick of time. Well, I really should stop the movie here in the essence of time, but this ending cracks me up, so I thought, well, let's watch it together. The villain is very upset. First, he strangles the engineer. Then he goes after the policeman. Surely, 5 against 1 will be no contest, but this villain is very mean. He shoots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He died hard. Now he wants to commit suicide. He only had 5 shots in a 6-shooter, though. Darn. I'll strangle myself. I'm down. No, I'm around. I got dizzy. I'm down. No. Not dead yet. Oh, maybe I am now. So you can see Barney Oldfield was a pretty popular celebrity during that era. And the other popular celebrity we want to look at in this video is Lincoln Beachey. Lincoln Beachey was one of the most famous aviators of his day. At only 18 years old, in the summer of 1905, he made a series of thrilling balloon flights at Portland's Lewis and Clark Centennial and American Pacific Exposition and Oriental Fair. In 1910, Beechey shifted his flying exhibitions to wing aircraft and continued giving demonstration flights across the country with the Curtiss Aircraft Company's aeronautical team. His reputation soared when in the fall of 1913, he became the first flyer to perform a loop. By early 1911, Beechey was giving airplane exhibitions, and on August 20, 1911, he gained his reputation as a #1 airman at the Great Chicago Meet against the cream of the world's aviators from France, England, and the United States. He demonstrated there a mastery of control and daring none could match. That's Lincoln Beechey, third from the right. Beechey was also quite the showman. If you notice, on the bottom of the lower wing, he had his name spelled out so as he flew over the audience, people could see who the pilot was. That was Beechey. Orville Wright said that he was the greatest aviator of them all. In 1911, Lincoln had become the star of the Curtiss exhibition team, which was an aerial stunt group. Only 6 months after Lincoln set foot in a cockpit, for the first time, he attempted a never-before-seen feat that would make Beechey a household name. The United States Canadian Carnival, based out of Buffalo, New York, offered $1,000 to the first person to fly an aeroplane over Niagara Falls. When adjusted for inflation, that'd be about $25,000 today. Naturally, Lincoln jumped at the chance. His need for stardom and his obsession with being the first and best at all things aviation would have compelled him to attempt the death-defying stunt, even without a monetary prize. The 150,000 spectators chanting "Beechey, Beechey" was enough for him. So on June 27, 1911, Lincoln became the first aviator to ever fly over Niagara Falls. But his passion for theatrics wouldn't let him stop there. Taking off in a drizzle, he flew over the lower Niagara Falls, then swept high over the American Falls. Circling back from the Canadian side, Beechey plunged deeply into a roaring gorge. He flew under the giant arch of the lower suspension bridge with his engine wide open, then right down the cataract's narrowing gorge, almost to the rapids. He was no more than 20 feet above jagged rocks and churning torrent before he pulled back on the controls and soared skyward again, his wings dripping wet from the spray. Sailing above the crowds, hoisted high by their buoyant jubilation, he landed soaking wet but safe and admitted to closing his eyes mid-flight. In 1915, at the Pan-Pacific Exposition in San Francisco, Beechey performed another one of his amazing stunts. These photographs that you are looking at are of the machinery hall at the exposition, a very large building about 900 feet long. Beechey started his flight outside the building, then swooped through the doorway, and went inside the great building and flew around. The arches are 75 feet wide. It was probably one of the wildest airplane flights ever made in the history of aviation. There was a 10 by 10 inch post every 50 feet, and each was 76 feet high. A small runway had been cleared through just enough for the plane to get through. In flight, Beechey is said to have had no difficulty, but in landing it is reported he ran into a big net set at one end of the hall for his protection, and slightly damaged his machine. He was quite uninjured, and the machine so slightly that it was ready for exhibitions he gave the next day. Of course, no one got a photograph of the event, but it was such an amazing event they talked Beechey into letting them take his plane and put it up on wires so they could duplicate the feat and take a photograph of it. And that's what you see in this photograph right here. Today you can see Beechey's plane in the Hiller Aviation Museum. They even have a mannequin inside to represent Beechey. Before we leave the exposition, he did another exhibition at night there. He tied a flare on the wing of his plane, and the photographer used a time exposure to get the results you see in this photograph here. You can see he never went in a straight line. I could speak for another hour about Beechey's exploits, but I'll leave you with one more thing about Beechey, and that has to do with this ship right here, the USS Oregon, which was a battleship, in the 1900s, early 1900s, even in the late 1800s. Beechey announced that he was going to show how his plane could be used militarily against an enemy. And so when the people arrived that next day, the Oregon was already a mile out. People could still see it, but it wasn't real close to them. What they didn't know that it was a wooden structure to look like the Oregon. And this wooden structure had several explosives and smoke bombs that were placed inside of it. This wooden model had painted canvas and stood on two barges topped with masts and smokestacks, but it had a crew that the Navy loaned. Positioned a mile offshore, it looked like a real ship. Flying over the ship offshore, Beechey dipped his plane as if dropping a bomb, and a puff of smoke appeared, followed by an explosion that echoed across the bay. In quick succession, he dove and swooped at the dreadnought as 50 explosions filled the air, and the Oregon was blasted into oblivion. A crowd of 80,000 reached a standing of panic. Men and women fainted, for they believed he had killed the sailors aboard the Oregon. While the smoke of the planet smoke pots and ground bombs hit the wreck, a tugboat swept the crew to safety. It was a thrilling, realistic exhibition, and Beechey walked off with half the gate receipts. So why did I spend so much time talking about these two men? I wanted you to realize how famous they were during that era, and what a big draw they were for the crowds. They didn't go to small cities. They went to the large cities like Detroit and Chicago and Los Angeles and New York. Well, I said they didn't go to any small cities. They did go to one. They came to Port Huron, and they came together. But we'll look at that in our next video, so join me then.